Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Prospect Corner. My name is Greg Boysen, and I'm going to be taking over hosting duties this week. Our normal fearless leader, Matthew Zator, is a little under the weather, so we're going to spare his vocal cords, and I'll do most of the talking this time around. But we've got Matthew, we've got Peter Baracchini. As per usual, welcome in, boys. How are we doing?
I'll talk first to save Matt's voice. Doing great. Matt, I just hope you're doing well. You know, it can't be easy with everything going on, but we're glad that you're still here with us and you're doing well. That's all that matters at this point.
For sure. Hopefully,
yeah, just still doing. Yeah, I'm recovering. So, but happy to be here.
Never too sick for prospect talk. That's for sure. And before we get into this week's topic, I just wanted to remind everybody to please go ahead and sign up for our morning skate newsletter. It's the best newsletter you're going to get 5 days a week, every weekday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, right in your inbox. You're going to get all the news and highlights and everything that's going on in the National Hockey League, plus some exclusive content from our great Hockey Writer staff that you could only get at the Morning Skate newsletter. So be the most informed hockey fan in your group of friends by getting the Morning Skate. And you know how you can do that? You can go to morningskate.io, throw your email address in the little box there, and then you're going to get the best newsletter out there by our great Hockey Writers staff. So don't miss out on that. They do a great job. And we're going to get into something that was released on the hockeywriters.com. So head over there if you want to read along and see the complete list. We're talking about our midseason top 100 NHL prospects. I'll preface this by saying these are just the skaters. There were no goalies on this list because there's a separate top 10 list as well for that. But there may be some changes coming up to the next list. We may get rid of the goalie discrimination and include them in the next list. But this was a list. Peter, you compiled the rankings, and actually it was a group effort as Matthew, myself, and Andrew Forbes helped write up the little descriptions for all of our 100 prospects. A lot of fun to put this together. Definitely a lot of hard work, so we're appreciative of that. So, Peter, let us know. Even though this has been out for a couple of weeks, but the central rankings came out last week, so that kind of took precedent. But who are your top 5 NHL prospects right now?
Yeah, I again just want to say thank you to you both and even Andrew for helping out with the profiles. It really is greatly appreciated. Again, group effort, collaborative, great collaboration. We all came to the agreement that, you know, this was the list, even though that there were some last minute changes. We all felt that this was the best thing. And my top 5, it starts off with Quentin Byfield at number 1, Owen Power number 2, Matty Beniers at number 3, Jake Sanderson 4, and Bowen Byram at number 5.
All right. And why did you take Byfield as your number 1? Why is he the top prospect in the NHL?
Yeah, he still holds on to that title, mainly because of the fact that, you know, if he didn't suffer an ankle injury at the beginning of this season, he would have made the LA Kings out of camp. I don't think there's any question about that. But the recovery time, the fact that he missed a couple of months, there was also the fact that maybe he could have joined Team Canada for the World Juniors, but he stuck to his recovery, played 11 games in the AHL. I believe he got 8 points or so during his time back there, and, you know, recently got the call up and played in his first NHL game. So there's a little bit of information that happened since then, but, you know, it just overall, he has the pedigree to be a top line centerman in the NHL. He's a smooth skater for his size, great hands for puck handling and transition. And you know what? His size is a big factor because of that. He's able to get under the forecheck. He's able to bully the opposition, lay a hit, come out with the puck and make a hard drive to the net. We saw that with glimpses at the World Junior Championship last year. just a phenomenal talent. And you know what? Yeah, second overall pick in 2020. Hasn't had the chance to make the jump yet, but you know what? With his first game under the belt, we're going to see more of him, and he's going to have a promising career ahead of him. Maybe he may not make the list next time around, because if he plays 25 games, that's the cutoff. But if he doesn't, then hey, maybe he may hold on to it, or maybe just dip slightly because of that.
Yeah, he's definitely an exciting prospect. And the Kings, if you go through this list, they got a lot of guys on this list. They've done a really good job. Rob Blake has done a really good job of stocking the cover there. And just to, before we go on, just to, as said, there were no goaltenders on this list. And also, we go by the Corey Pronman rules, where a prospect is a player that is under 25, who has yet to play 25 games in one season or 50 total games in the NHL. So just so you know what we considering a prospect. And one guy who's yet to make his NHL debut, but his name is all over the place, especially international hockey this year, and that's Matty Beniers. And our own Matt wants to talk about a Matt. That's weird, but what do you want to talk about? Our third ranked prospect, Matty Beniers.
Yeah, well, I mean, Beniers he's impressed since the draft, like last year. He was even in the conversation to be first overall at some point. So being drafted by the Seattle Kraken, he went back to Michigan, and he's been putting up points. He's got 30 points in 25 games so far for the University of Michigan. They're a powerhouse team, but he's been leading the way there. He also was named, obviously, of course, named to the World Juniors. Only played 2 games there because being postponed, but he was also recently named to Team USA for the Winter Olympics, which is a massive thing for him to be able to go there. And I mean, that's because the NHL players aren't going there. He wouldn't be going there if the Olympics had NHL players going. But I mean, now he's being named to that team. He's going to lead. I think he's going to be a leader for that team. There's a lot of juniors. There's a lot of that World Junior team that's going to the Olympics. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles all that. I think he's going to be great. I believe he was at the World Championships last year as well. So, I mean, like you said, Greg, he's got a lot of international experience already. I think he's going to excel. He's a leader. He's a great two-way player. All this stuff we've talked about in the past. He's going to probably be a Selke Trophy candidate in the NHL when he gets there, maybe captain of the Seattle Kraken at one point. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen for this guy, and it's going to be exciting to see him in the NHL one day, and definitely deserving of that third place in this prospects rankings.
Yeah, for sure. Kraken definitely have a guy that they can build around, not only on but off the ice. He's a face of the franchise kind of guy for sure. May not be the most exciting player in the NHL, but he's going to do all the heavy lifting, all the stuff that makes a difference. Might not show up in a score sheet, but you can't win without a guy like Matty Beniers. I just wanted to talk briefly about our 5th rated prospect, Bowen Byram, the defenseman of the Colorado Avalanche, who, and if he just didn't have the issues he's dealing with, he wouldn't be on this list anymore, because he would have played 25 games already. He's a full-time NHLer, but just misses the cut. 37 total games. He's played 18 games this season. But as we know, he's been dealing with some serious concussion issues. He's had multiple concussions. He came back from one earlier this year, played a couple games, and then he has removed himself. Not the team's call, but his own call. Just he can't shake these post-concussion syndrome symptoms. And he took himself away from the team for personal reasons. It's not personal reason. I don't like that the team says personal reason. It's an injury. It's a freaking injury. All right. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. The guy has, a brain injury he's trying to recover from. So first and foremost, I'm happy that he has decided to put his own health ahead of everything else, which is really hard to do. We all know hockey culture. These guys will, Patrice Bergeron played in the Stanley Cup final with a punctured lung, for crying out loud. I mean, these guys are the toughest guys on the planet. We know that. And it's a team first mentality. But for a young guy to say, hey, my future is at stake here, I need to step away. That's commendable for sure. And he's an exciting player. 5 goals, 11 points in his 18 games this year. He had 2 of his 5 goals were game winners. He's an exciting player. That Colorado blue line is just ridiculous. Yeah. If he's there and healthy with a Cale Makar, and you've got Samuel Girard and Devin Taves has been, quite the pickup from them. Definitely, part of an exciting team, but all that's on the back burner right now. So I just wanted to talk about him briefly, just because he's one of my favorite young players, but I want him to be a player for a long time. So I'm just wishing that he takes as much time as he needs and gets healthy. And you know what, if it just isn't meant to be, it's a shame, but you got to take care of yourself first and foremost. So
absolutely.
Best wishes to Bowen Byram, and hopefully he won't be on this list next time, because he's back and he's performing at a high level in the NHL. All right, so that was our top 5. And Peter, 6 through 10, how do we round out our top 10 NHL prospects?
Yeah, the top 10 goes as follows, or the latter half of the top 10 goes Cole Perfetti at number 6. At 7, Alexander Holtz. 8, Marco Rossi. 9, Alex Turcotte. And William Eklund at number 10.
Very, very good. Matt, who sticks out the most to you in that second 5 there?
Well, I'm going to focus on a guy I've talked about in the past, Marco Rossi. He's been prospect of the week, I believe, for you, Greg, for one of the weeks there. And we already know this guy's super talented. He's one of the most creative players I've seen. He's fast. He's a great skater. One of the guys that the Minnesota Wild are counting on to be a leader on their forward group for the next decade or so. And, he was called up. He's played 2 games with them. He's back in Iowa, but he's a point a game guy down there. He's got 26 points in 26 games, 8 goals, 18 assists. I mean, he's one of those guys. And also I've said in the past, with his coming back from that COVID complications and that heart issue that he had, and being able to come back and, and again, we talked about health with Byram. It's great for him to be able to come back and actually recover from that. And that was a life-threatening thing for him too. I mean, this wasn't something that was just like, oh, whatever. This is a health scare, and this could have screwed up not just a career, but a life. So it's great for him to come back and actually show, his talent is coming through again. He's going to be a leader for the Wild for the next, for a long time. And it's great for him to see what, teamed up with Matthew Boldy up there. And Boldy's in the NHL right now, and he's performing a lot. Ross is going to be right there with him. This is a double, 2-headed monster for the Wild in the future. So it's great for Rossi, and it's going to be exciting to see him in the future.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player. I've got to see a bunch of him this year covering the AHL Central, see a lot of the Wild. Was bummed a few weeks ago when I thought I was going to get to see him and Boldy in person when they were in town taking on the Chicago Wolves. And the morning of that first weekend set, they both got called up to the NHL. I was like, man, I'm happy for them, but man, I want some entertainment up here. But Rossi's an exciting player. Peter, speaking of exciting players whose last names end with I, you want to talk about another young player who's had a pretty good AHL season as well. Who do you got?
Yeah, with the nickname Goal Perfetti, based on what he did at the U18s, just what he's done so far at the pro level, it's absolutely astonishing. 2 years removed from where he had, 74 assists and 111 points in his draft year, 26 points last season in his first stint in the pro level, and he has another 15 and 17 games this season. Got called up to the Winnipeg Jets, scored his first goal. We're going to be seeing quite a bit of him in the future as well. Another name to keep an eye on for the time being, if he plays 25 games, to be determined, but also just his play for Team Canada at the World Juniors already matched his point total from last year's tournament in 2 games. And you take note of his swift playmaking, his creativity, his awareness. Seems like he has eyes at the back of his head, and he just makes plays at a very high level and high speed that is just absolutely astonishing what he's able to do with the puck when it's on his stick. I mean, he was going to be he was going to be a game breaker or difference maker for Canada at that tournament. He's been a difference maker at the AHL, and hopefully in the future, it's going to be a very short time. He's going to be making his impact felt at the NHL level with his playmaking abilities. And you know what, like I said before, his nickname's Goal Perfetti. He has a wicked shot when he uses it. Obviously, his puck distribution is the highlight of his skill set, but he ain't afraid to shoot it. So yeah, he's definitely going to have a really promising career, and we're just seeing the glimpse of it right now.
Yeah. Again, that's another one of the players that I've been able to see in game action with the Manitoba Moose in the AHL Central, and he's an exciting player. I don't think he's got too many AHL games left in his pro career. So a great pickup for the Jets, who definitely need an influx of young talent up there to keep their success going. Speaking of good shooters, I want to talk about a guy that was hailed, maybe had the best shot of that 2020 draft class, and that's our 7th rated prospect, Alexander Holtz of the New Jersey Devils. I mean, it's hard to believe that this guy was a teammate, Lucas Raymond. They were played together and the same team in Sweden. Like, that's how did that team not go undefeated? Those are two exciting young players. And Raymond's got a lot of the spotlight this year because he's played the entire year in the NHL and played well and is a Calder Trophy favorite. But Holtz, man, he's a very talented shooter. Not only does he just have a powerful release, but he's so accurate, and he's performed everywhere he's been so far this season. He spent most of the season so far with the Utica Comets in the AHL. They've had a really good run this season. They started off 13-0 to start the season. They still have one of the best records in the league, but he's got 9 goals and 17 points in 16 AHL games. So that's what you want to see out of these talented young players, is perform high at the AHL. He's had 7 games with the Devils, and it has a pair of assists there. So not getting, the same type of success in a little bit of NHL action, but he's playing further down in the lineup than he does in the AHL. He even played, he played for Sweden. Those 2 games they had at the World Juniors before the tournament got postponed, he had a goal and assist. So he was performing there as well. He's an exciting young player. The Devils have got a pretty good future ahead of them. I think they're, Jack Hughes is turning into that number 1 overall pick star that everybody thought he was. He's taken a little time to get there. He's dealt with some injuries, but he's rounding into that player we all thought he was going to be. And you throw in an Alexander Holtz and a couple of other prospects, and the Devils team's going to be pretty competitive here in the next year or two. So now that we've gone through our top 10, is there anybody real quick that we think should be in the top 10 that were maybe just outside or further down on the list? Matt, we'll start with you on this one. Who do you think was on the outside looking in but deserved to be in the top 10?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy I've talked about in the past on the Howlers and Growlers show, and you can probably tell who it is going to be. Is Dylan Guenther. He's been just ripping it up for the Edmonton Oil Kings this year. He's got a ton of points and goals in the last. I think he's only gone a few games without scoring this year, and we already know what he can do. He's a great goal scorer. He just knows how to put the puck in the net, and he's at 15 right now. But I mean, he hasn't played in the NHL yet. He has shown he can play at that level. He played in the preseason, and he looked really good. So, but his skill level is just off the charts. For the Coyotes to get him where they did at 9th overall was just a coup for me. I mean, I had him at 1st overall, I believe, in one of my rankings last year. At one point, there was talk he could have gone 1st overall, and he goes 9th. So, I mean, this is something that this guy's going to be an NHL star. I think he's going to be a 30 goal scorer multiple times and be a leading goal scorer for the Coyotes in the future if they stay in Arizona. But I think Guenther deserves talk to be in that top 10. We'll see if he can move up there in the future here.
All right, Peter, is there some guy that you think you maybe should have gone back and put in the top 10 since this list has come out? Who do you got?
Yeah, and he's right there at number 11, Mason McTavish from the Anaheim Ducks. during his draft year, there was something missing with me in evaluating Mason McTavish. I mean, I had him quite lower than some had, but during that U18 championship, it seemed like he had another year and he was looking like a pro in that tournament, like actual NHL caliber. Like he's been in the league for 3, 4, 5 seasons already. Pro accurate release. He's got the physicality, he's got the strength, he's got everything that you want in a strong power forward scoring winger with the ability to get in the face of the opponent. He's got that ability. And, given the fact that he played 9 games already with the Anaheim Ducks, looked pretty good during his little stint. 2 goals, added an assist, but then was sent down to the Peterborough Petes, traded over to the Hamilton Bulldogs, I believe, and now he's just still, picking up where he left off. In his first game back with the Petes, he had a hat trick, had 5 goals in his time before he got traded, and now he's already at 3 goals and 5 points with the Bulldogs already. So the production is continuing. He's making his presence felt, and we saw that highlight reel goal that he scored for Canada in the first game against the Team Czechia, where he's skating around the zone, just displaying everything that I talked about: his skating, his size, his ability to just fend off defenders. He's going to be a real impact player. And I was still surprised that the Ducks took him at 3rd, but it's looking really great right now.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Peter. McTavish is the guy that I think is outside the top 10 that deserves the most to be there. And and the Ducks are going to be really good here in a year or two, which is good. That Pacific Division needs some influx of good teams. We can't make life easy for the Vegas Golden Knights every season. They need some competition. It's not going to be the Oilers. We know that's falling apart quickly. So those California teams, man, they got players all up and down this top 100 list. So yeah, I would put McTavish up a few spots higher into that top 10. He's shown us this year that he's the real deal. And, I think a lot of the people who were critical of the Ducks for taking him 3rd overall are probably wishing those tweets would disappear, maybe, because he's a stud. There's no doubt about that. So we're going to take a quick second here as we kind of get through the halfway point of our show, just to remind you once again to sign up for our great Morning Skate newsletter. It's, you're probably tired of us saying how good it is, but that's because it's really good. We wouldn't mislead folks. We got a great staff of our writers who contribute to it every day. You'll get it Monday through Friday, every morning. You'll get the scores. You'll get any of the top news stories, plus some great little features that don't show up on the website. They're exclusive only to the newsletter. So please head over at morningskate.io and sign up for that as well. You'll see it a lot in our articles too, as you're perusing all the great content over at thehockeywriters.com. You'll see a little box to click on to do that as well. So I recommend you do that if you haven't already. But seriously, if you've been listening to our shows and you haven't done it already, then I don't know what to say, but we're going to keep pimping it.
What are you waiting for?
Exactly. All the cool kids are doing it. Don't be left behind. Peer pressure works. All right, we've gone through our top 10. Let's get back into this list real quick, and let's talk about some guys that when we revisit this list and it gets updated when the season is over, who are the guys that are going to be much higher than where they're ranking on this current list? And Peter, we'll start with you. Who's a guy that we should keep our eye out for and will be much higher on our next set of rankings?
Yeah, you've had him as your prospect of the week quite a bit, Greg, and I even had him once. Wyatt Johnson from the Dallas Stars, just absolutely killing it in the OHL right now. He ranks first in points, 63 in 33 games, almost 2 points per game with the Windsor Spitfires. And this is a player that only played 7 games all of last season because of the OHL shutdown, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the only games he had was at the U18 tournament. But, he had great skill and awareness as a two-way centerman. He's great offensively with his passing. He's got a really underrated shot. And now we're seeing it on full display right now. We're seeing him use that elite level vision to spot his teammates. We're seeing him get in on the action with the goal scoring with 21 goals this year. And, you know, it was a risky move for the Dallas Stars to try and take a player like him in the first round because very minimal. And I mean, less than 10 games, like that's a really small sample size for a first rounder. But, you know, they instilled faith in him. I had him as a second rounder, and they took the opportunity to see him as more than that. And it's definitely paying off. So he's ranked 62nd right now. I wouldn't surprise if he even cracks the top 30, maybe top 25 next time around.
For sure. Yeah, he's been dynamite this year. Great pickup for the Dallas Stars. I mean, we've talked about him before on this show. Matt, who you got that's going to be much higher on this list next time around?
Yeah, here's a theme. Matthew Boldy is my pick for this one. I mentioned Marco Rossi, and I also mentioned Boldy in that description too, is that this guy he's ripping it up in the NHL right now. He's got, he's been scoring at a clip that's, he's got 4 points in 5 games, 2 goals, two goals in 5. He's been showing that he is already a great NHL talent, and in Iowa, he had 10 points in 10 games as well. So, I mean, he's got a lot of skill. He's probably, like I said, he's going to be leading the offense in Minnesota, the next generation of talent that Minnesota has. This is looking at in the past when they had Gaborik leading the way, and we got Rossi and Boldy coming up. The Wild are going to be a powerhouse, I think, offensively in the future again. I don't know if they were ever a powerhouse, but whatever. But, guys like, having guys like Gaborik, 30 plus goal scorers and winning, and Wild are doing well this season already. So, but yeah, Boldy, I think is going to really, he's 28th right now, but I think he's going to get into that top 20 once this list, unless he plays the 20 games, or 25 games, which could happen here. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the Wild have him for the rest of the season. So he may not even be eligible for this list, but we'll see.
Yeah, Wild definitely have a bright future ahead of them. You mentioned Rossi and Boldy. Add those guys with a Kaprizov. That's pretty good there. And they got other young guys coming up too. They've seen a little bit of Kalen Addison, the defenseman they got from Pittsburgh for Jason Zucker. He had a goal last night against the Blackhawks. Adam Beckman's another good young forward that's been playing well in Iowa. He scored for the Wild last night at the AHL level. And then don't forget, they got that Jasper Wallstedt guy we may have mentioned once or twice on this show. So yeah,
a bit.
Things are looking good for Minnesota. That's for sure. And as somebody who cheers for a team in their division, I'm not thrilled about it, but for a team that we used to joke about in Chicago for years, we used to call them the Minnesota Mild because they were never that exciting to watch. They're going to be pretty exciting to watch here in the next couple of years. Good for them. The fans of Minnesota deserve it. Speaking of my Blackhawks, I'm going to be a homer here, and I'm going to pick my biggest riser for next year. It's going to be Lucas Reichel. He's ranked 34th right now, and I think the season he's having, his first pro season in North America, I think he's definitely going to be top 20, maybe even making a push towards the top 15, top 10 come next year, but maybe that's just me being biased. But I'm a huge fan of this kid. I've seen him play in person a bunch of times in Rockford. He's an exciting player. He's a dynamic player, does a lot of little things. Now he can score and he can set up his teammates. He's got 12 goals, 23 points in 22 AHL games. He played his first 2 NHL games last weekend. The Blackhawks are handling him right. They brought him up, gave him a little bit of taste, and they sent him right back. The Ice Hogs are right in the thick of the playoff race for the AHL. So I think it's more important for these guys, and I think it's very overrated. And a lot of these guys, especially here with the Blackhawks, they see these young players, they want them up here because the Blackhawks are struggling. Get your young guys up here. And I know that's not exclusive to the Chicago fans. I'm sure that's all around the league. Get our young guys up here. But there's something to be said that I think is totally underrated for these young players to play meaningful games in top line minutes for the AHL it's better for Reichel to play on the top line, top power play unit, play 20 minutes a night in games that mean something, than play on the third line 9 minutes a night for a team going nowhere in the NHL. So Reichel is an exciting player. He's been red hot since the break, since they came back from the Christmas break. In 4 games, he's got 4 goals and 9 points in his last 4 AHL games, and that's sandwiched in between his NHL debut. So he's an exciting player. He's the Blackhawks' top prospect by far, and 34, he's going to jump big time in the next list. So if we're talking about risers, if people are going to move up the list, it's only nature that people are going to move down the list. So let's talk about some guys that are going to drop next time around. Matthew, we'll start with you on this one. Who do you got that's ranked pretty high now, but the next time comes out may not be so high?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say with a lot of these guys because, there's just so much that can go with injuries and with stuff that can, they can get traded, stuff like that. But I'm going to go unfortunately, I'm going to go with the guy that, or with the Canucks, Jack Rathbone. I think if he does play in the NHL here, he'll go up, but I think he may actually drop from where he is on this list because, the Canucks are just, with their defense, unless he actually goes up and plays, and even the AHL, he isn't performing as high as I thought he would this season. Even, from what he did last year, it was just so dynamic and so good. I really haven't seen that in the AHL. I mean, there's a lot of it's happening with the COVID stuff, and he's not. He played in the NHL to start the season. Only played a few games. Kind of struggled defensively. But I think, he's going to be a great NHL defenseman, but I think with all this other prospect talent that's around him, I think he's going to drop on this list, unfortunately.
Yeah. That was a guy that there were a lot of high hopes. I mean, I remember a lot of talk coming out of training camp that he was going to be an everyday NHLer, and it's just, not working out so far. But again, these guys are so young, and you get your peaks and valleys with these guys. So I still think he's going to be a decent player when it's all said and done. Peter, who do you got dropping down this list come next rankings?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a 2-for-1 for me. Both Nick Robertson and Rodin Namirov, and nothing about their play, nothing about their potential and their skill set, because Nick Robertson has top 6 scoring winger written all over him. Rodin Namirov, top 6 two-way winger with his abilities to make an impact offensively and defensively. But this season hasn't just gone right for them. I mean, Nick Robertson in his second game broke his fibula and was out 10 weeks. I believe he's only starting to at least starting to come back right now. Rodin Namirov, I believe he had an upper body injury and he's dealt with COVID and minimal ice time in the KHL right now. So I think the fact that they haven't gotten game time opportunities, not through any fault of their own, but because of just unfortunate circumstances, I think it's going to impact them in the rankings further down than where they were, because I have Nick Robertson top 20 and, Rodin Namirov 21 based on their skill set and their potential. But the season just hasn't gone right for them. So I think maybe next time they'll still be within the top 30, top 35, but I don't think that based on what other prospects are doing, given the time that they've missed, it's going to impact them. I don't think it's going to derail them too much because of the fact that, they're in a strong system, a strong development system with the Maple Leafs organization. Hopefully Amirov could come over and play and get some meaningful AHL games. Nick Robertson becomes healthy again. And then you guys still 2 dynamic prospects in your system. So for me, I think those 2 are going to be dropping, and not through any fault of their own again, but because very minimal game time and other prospects are showing their worth.
Yeah, for sure. The guy I was going to mention, Robertson too, is my guy that's going to drop out of that top 20. And as you mentioned, it's not necessary. It's not his fault. He's hurt, and you can't put up numbers when you're hurt. And he's, serious injury, limited to just 2 games this year. I know there's a lot of high hopes for him in Toronto to be, part of that core. Throw him in with, your Austin Matthews and your William Nylander and Mitch Marner, and he's going to be another one of those exciting young players. Just not going to happen this year. and he'll have a hard, tough road back to get back up there. But I think he's definitely has the talent to do so. So yeah, he's going to drop in that list. But again, not because of anything he did. It's just you can't perform when you're not playing. So hopefully that's not a trend in his young career, and he can get it back on track in the very near future. So we're going to wrap up our talk about this top 100 rankings, and we're going to, again, kind of look forward to the next rankings as we just did. Who was not on this top 100 that you think is going to be there the next time after the season when this ranking gets updated? Matthew, we'll start with you. Who outside the top 100 is going to be a name we're talking about before the start of next season?
Well, I'm going to go with guys playing in the Vancouver Giants right now, and Fabian Lysell, drafted by the Boston Bruins. In this past draft, he's got so much skill, and he's been showing it for the Giants this year. And unfortunately, he's now the leader on the offense because they just traded a ton of talent at the WHL trade deadline. So they're probably not even going to make the playoffs. They're kind of on the cusp. But it looks like from their trades, they're saying, no, we're not going to do that this year. But Lysell is going to be a leader on that team for the next few years. I don't think he's going to be in the NHL for a while, but I think he's going to be he should be in the top 100 once this next list comes out, because just of what he's done in the WHL this year, been a leader offensively for the Giants. And we'll see if he can keep kind of that production going when he's got it, when he's the main guy now, because a lot of their Justin Surduff was a big guy that was traded at the deadline, and now he's going to be a leader. But I think he's going to definitely rise to the occasion. He's just got so much talent, and I liked him from our rankings with the draft last year, and I know Peter, you liked Lysell as well. So it's going to be great to see him in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. Peter, who was the guy that you are hoping to include on our next rankings that wasn't on this one?
Yeah, and I probably should have had him on because he's just been, again, another one that's come over playing as his first OHL season, is just absolutely tearing it up. 6th round, 180th overall, Matvei Petrov from the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, this is a player that I had as a second round scoring winger, 22 goals and 42 points in the MHL during this draft year. But right now, I mean, he's just putting up ridiculous numbers, in the top 5 in scoring, with 56 points and 22 goals, behind, Johnson, Brandon Cooey, and Rory Cairns, all drafted, and all doing phenomenal things with their NHL club. But for Petrov to come in as a first-time player, coming overseas, playing on a smaller ice surface, and putting up the numbers that he's doing right now is absolutely impressive. And the fact that he fell at a 6th round, I mean, a lot of players fell during that 2021 draft, but for me, given where I had him and where the Oilers took him 4 rounds later, I mean, that's just a massive steal for them. And you could rest assured that he's not just going to be in the top, 190 section. He's going to be in that, 50, 60 range, possibly even higher, cracking the top 50 if this consistency continues.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of guys that are right outside that top 100 that are knocking at the door. And, as guys graduate from prospects to full-time players, there'll be some slots opening up and some guys regress instead of progress. So one of the guys I think we're going to be including in the next list, and again, I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to keep my Blackhawk fans happy. I'm going to pick Wyatt Kaiser, the Blackhawks 3rd round pick in 2020, where I think they're going to get a lot of value out from that pick. He's currently in his sophomore season at the University of Minnesota Duluth, so he's playing with one of the top college programs. This was a kid that, when was drafted, was touted. He's got what your prototypical, NHL defenseman looks like in today's day and age. He's fast, great skater, pressures with the puck, contributes offensively. But then this year, he's focused a lot on getting better in his own zone and have become a really good two-way defender, where before he was one of these offensive-minded defenders and maybe be a liability when he's in his own zone. But this year, he's focused on being a better defensive defenseman to go along with the great skating and the passing ability and jumping in the rush. His points have taken a little bit of a hit this year, but that's because he's focused more on his play without the puck. And that's huge going forward to see a young kid take that initiative to get better all around. And I think the Blackhawks got themselves a real nice player here. Again, he was 81st overall, and he might be one of those guys in a couple of years. You'd think, man, why didn't he go higher? So that I think he'll be a top 100 prospect for our next rankings, especially if UMD has another nice postseason run and he's a part of it as well. So we'll see how that goes. He was part of the Team USA for the World Juniors and had an assist in that one game that they got to play. So maybe if they get that tournament going again, he can impress there as well. All right, that does it for our top 100 NHL prospects. Once again, if you want to check out that full list, head over to thehockeywriters.com. You can read all 100 of our prospects. We have a little blurb on all of them. Some great links to other stuff in that post as well. So head on over there, see what you think. Leave us some comments. We're looking forward to doing more of that. Another list as the season comes down. And then we were talking that we may break it down even further and do top 10s at each position too, to kind of give you even more prospect content. We're going to wrap up our episode this week the way we do every week, and we're going to give out some prospect of the week recognitions. Matthew, we'll start with you. Who is your prospect to the week? Who was the best performing Matthew in junior hockey this week?
I am breaking my trend again. Sorry, Dean. I'm going with the Jeremy Wilmer. I'm going to stay with my undersized guys, though. Jeremy Wilmer he's playing for Tri-City in the USHL. Undrafted this past year. I did a profile on him, draft profile last year on, and I thought he was going to be drafted. It's interesting why he wasn't, and it doesn't seem like he's on Metro rankings this year as his second year eligible. Spoiler alert, he's going to be on mine at one point, maybe not my top 64, but later on for sure. But, this year he's got 13 goals, 44 points in 31 games for Tri-City and the USHL. He's super skilled. Yes, he's undersized at 5'6", but he's just one of those undersized guys, just got great work ethic, really quick, really creative. But I mean, it just seems like size is sometimes still a sticking point for a lot of NHL teams and their scouting staffs. And hopefully a team kind of looks at him and what he's done in the USHL this year and just take a flyer on him, because I believe he deserves a chance to actually push his way into an NHL, something in the future, because I think he's got enough skill to do it and that work ethic, like I said before. So he's my prospect of the week, and hopefully a team actually drafts him this time.
All righty. Yeah, that's a name to keep an eye on for sure come draft day. Peter, who is your prospect of the week this week?
Yeah, and I had a bit of criticisms last week when we did the central scoutings, and my prospect of the week is Luca Del Bel Beluz. I mean, probably has one of the best names in this draft already. But at the same time, I mean, his production is just absolutely off the charts. In the top 10 in scoring, 47 points, 20 goals in 35 games with the Mississauga Steelheads. And, I took note of his skating. It wasn't one of the main reasons why I would have him as a top 15 North American skater. But this was when I saw him in October and November early on, which is why I didn't feel right having him where he was. But seeing him play lately and seeing his production, his skill, his ability to use his edges and his movements is just absolutely phenomenal what a few months can do. And you see the improvement in his game. So not only is he, worthy of being in that top 11, he's just absolutely killing it with the production. I mean, I believe in his last 9 games, 5 games were multi-point games. And in his last 8 games, he's had 6 goals. So he's absolutely not slowing down. He's improved tremendously. And I would like to take back what I said about last week about him being ranked higher and should have been lower, because he absolutely deserves it right now. And he's earned my praise just for the rankings and even as my prospect of the week right now.
For sure. Yeah, good stuff. Definitely a player to be keeping our eye out on for sure. And my prospect of the week, I'm going for a guy that's already been drafted and performing well. I hate to do this, but I got to give props to a Detroit Red Wings prospect. Old rivalries never die. But the Red Wings are getting a lot of praise for their prospects. We've talked a lot about Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond, who, let's face it, they're not prospects anymore. They're full-time NHL players. But another wave of young players are coming through, and Jonathan Berggren is going to be one of those guys leading the charge. He's been phenomenal for the Griffins of late. He had a 4-assist game on Wednesday versus the Cleveland Monsters. He's got a 3-game point streak. He's got points in 7 of his last 8 games, 6 multi-point games on the season. He got off to a little bit of a slow start in his first season here in North America, but through 30 AHL games, he's got 8 goals and 27 points, and he's putting it together. This was a kid that had a big season last year in the Swedish Hockey League with 12 goals and 45 points in 49 games. So this is his first taste of North American hockey. He was a 2nd-round pick of the Red Wings way back in 2018. So maybe one of those guys that some people have kind of overlooked just because it's taken so long for him to get over here and start playing. But he's been the best player. Well, one of the top players for the Griffins. They've got a couple other guys that are producing, but those are more your AHL veteran guys. But as far as prospects goes on that Griffins roster, he's been the best one. And again, he, just like with Reichel, I think it's more important for him to be the big fish in the AHL pond right now and get that, get that important minutes. He's been one of their top offensive players, and the Griffins are another team that are right in the thick of that playoff race. So he's going to be playing some very meaningful games in Grand Rapids, something that probably isn't going to happen in Detroit for the rest of the way. So, maybe give him a taste of the NHL as a reward, like the Blackhawks did with Reichel, but I think their focus should be on his development in the AHL, which, as I've said, is super underrated. Let these kids play, especially, these first-year kids coming over from Europe. Let them get some playoff hockey under their belt and some big minutes in important games. It's more important for the big picture. So Jonathan Berggren, he's been lighting it up, and he's been on a tear. So he's another one of those young Red Wing players to keep an eye out on. Those are our prospects of the week, and that's another great episode of Prospect Corner. Matt, get some hot tea and honey, keep those vocal cords well rested. Thank you for letting me fill in top line center this week and taking the reins of the show. That was a lot of fun. And don't forget, one last reminder, morningskate.io. We're going to beat it into you until you finally sign up for it, but you won't regret it. Sign up for the Morning Skate. It's the best. And that's going to wrap up this episode for Prospect Corner. Once again, Matthew, Peter, thank you for chatting this week. And we'll be back next week with another great episode talking about the future of the NHL. And everybody be safe so we can chat more hockey next week.